kuendelea kungangana na kupambana na siku na wiki ama kutaka wiki yako. The pleasure request that you join, please like. When you like, you get to know that you're watching us, and that you like, please share. When you share, you give someone else an opportunity to watch the broadcast. This attack on, and it begins now. Tafadhali fika pale, piga like. Ukisha bonyeza like, tafadhali share. Ukisha unampa mtu mwingine nafasi ya kuweza kutazama program ya leo. State of the Nation, tuko na Orogo mwenyewe. Tuko na Orogo, Andano Orogo.
Yes.
Alafu pia tuko na wakili mpya hapa. Bwana mgeni kwetu kwa mara ya kwanza na tujumuika na sisi. Warungu, right? Warungu Mwangi.
Yes.
Wanatia.
Niko salama kabisa.
Haya.
Mambo iko sawa.
Haya, asante. Karibu. Haya. Nani alikuwa na assignment mara ya mwisho? Ilikuwa tukujie na economic model ya sisi. Inaitwa chama yenu inaitwa aje?
Ati sisi.
Inaitwa aje?
Chama iko imara.
ANC.
Amani National Congress.
Haya.
Yeah, so ulisema kwamba una tweet hapa na Chapia. Na Chapia pia kuja na yake.
So Chapia ilikuwa so ni subiri Chapia afike.
Wewe tweet hapa na kuja na yake. Mimi ni bebe yangu.
And then lakini yako iko tayari?
We discuss the economic model.
Yako iko tayari mama?
It's getting ready.
Still getting ready.
2
months down the line.
Jana ndio and this on record. Jana ndio we discussed and we are trying to revive the manifesto.
Okay.
I think by the time we talk to tweet up, and I wish for that show because our viewers wanted to know the manifestos, wanted to know the model. So I think tutawafanya justice by kuturudisha hapa, we discuss the model again.
Haya, narudisha tafadhali join, like, share and let us know where you watching us from. Tuendeleza Mungu tuombe alafu basi tukirudi na kuja kuwapa salamu zenu. Mighty Father, we come before you this morning. We worship you, glorify your name. Thank you for another opportunity to be alive this morning. We thank you for this program as we begin this conversation. May it edify the fabric of this country. Every tackler that's joining in this morning, meet them at the point of individual needs. I pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Haya, hata nione wangona hapa wameamka tayari. Ni kina nani hapa? Watu wa economic model wamesema bado wanangoja ikarango. Hii model haina miguu, ndio wanashona miguu. Kuna wa bottoms up, kuna wa middle out,
kuna
rural economic, watu wa kupeleka reserve. Kila mtu ako na yake. Watu wakieleweke pia wajaleta yao. Ama yao wamesema wanabaki kwa trickle down.
Watu wakieleweka wanasema all these are sloganias.
The big four.
The big four.
The big four.
Sijui inapumua ama iliacha kupumua. Kim Limo, good morning to you. Yosea Raptala, good morning. Keep quiet, keep live from Eldoret. Greetings in the name of Jesus. I love your political show, bro. Thank you so much, my brother. Keep quiet, keep. Brand Cheria, good morning from Villaggio, logged in. Watu wa Villaggio. Asante sana, good to see you, Brand. Salimia Solo mwenyewe, mwambie amesalimiwa kabisa kwenye tackle. Naona Arab Bowen, morning, following you live from Trans Nzoia County. Kokoi Plomeri, good morning, watching you live from Marakwet. Arnold Mwanake, good morning, live from NSSF. DK Chebwa, Aslas, tuko ndani. Caleb Tanui, Jambo team tuned in from Eldoret. Roger Kitu, good morning team LD. Asante sana watu wa Eldoret. Thank you so much Eldoret guys, we really appreciate your patronage and support. Geoffrey Masha Kasarani, tuko ndani. Arab Cheptom Serem niko ndani. Watching Josh Lele, Chief Kapchorwa location, good morning to you. Jamaa wangu wa Kapchorwa, salimia sana watu wa Kapchorwa zaidi. Salimia watu wa Kapchorwa sana watu wa Nandi wasalimia sana. Aizo Boss Burgay, hi brother, hi to you my brother, good to see you this morning. Wambugu Murugu WM Kiru Madhioya Tiundina, asante sana watu wa Madhioya. David Kamau, good morning. Mtu wa nyumbani ya? Haya, karibuni sana wa nyumba. David Kamau, good morning team Taklas. Karoki wa Masi tuned in and watching from County 047. Kuzalel Elisha live from EMC, good morning. Calvin Kim Lokobwa tuned in from Isiolo. Taylor Adriano mko juu kama bei ya petroli. Kwa na vibes kweli. Pick up line hatari zaidi. Haya. Robi Kibet LOGB following this great forum from Chepkoilel. It's a lightning. Asante sana, salimia watu wa Chepkoilel zaidi. Nixon Rotich tuned in from Lexington. Good to see you. Hilary Chepkwany, morning viongozi tackled na watch it clearly at my Tarakwa Ward MCA. Alex Rop and some good morning. You are doing a good job. Thank you so much my brother Alex Rop. Cleveland Otieno. Good morning guys watching from the CBD. Ya juu. Asante sana ndugu yangu Cleveland. Andy live from 047 like your political show. Bro, keep it up. Thank you so much. Alfred Edabunay. Good to see you Mudosi. Good morning from Kilimani. You owe me lunch bana. Make it happen. Edabunay. Good to see you. Daniel Korir. Morning Gerald tuned in from Baringo Eldamaravin. Franklin Nyongesa Wechuli Kakamega Senatorial Seat aspirant watching you live from Navakholo. Cheers, asante sana Maswai Phil, good morning. I keep doing the good work. Thank you so much my brother Maswai. It's a pleasure to see you. This is a common sense. Oh wow, it's Tuesday. State of the Nation edition of the 28th of September 2021 tarehe 28 mwezi wa 9 mwaka 2021. This is a tackle State of the Nation edition of Tuesday. Na from 4th una nafasi kabambe ya kuweza kujisajili kama mpiga kura. Kama umefikisha miaka ya kuweza kuwa mpiga kura, tafadhali una nafasi kabambe ya kuweza kujisajili. Una nafasi ya kipekee ya kuweza kuhusika kwenye mazungumzo ya kuhakikisha kwamba unaweza husika kwenye mazungumzo ya vile uongozi unaweza endeshwa Kenya. Kwa hivyo tarehe 4 IBC inaanza mchakato mpya ya kuweza kuhakikisha kwamba unapata nafasi ya kuchukua cheti cha kupiga kura. Kama umefikisha miaka ya kupiga kura na una kura, please take your vote on the 4th on Monday next week. Please register as a voter. Mali popote ulipo, wherever you are, you can register as a voter. Why should you register as a voter? Voting is the highest responsibility of a patriotic citizen. If you are a patriot in this country, ensure that you have a voter's card. Otherwise, utashinda ukilalamika. Tafadhali chukua control, kura yako sauti yako. Kura yako sauti yako. Chukua control, kura yako sauti yako. Tarehe 4 jitokeze kuweza kujisajili kama mpiga kura. Mahali popote ulipo, wherever you are, you can register as a voter and ensure that you participate in the shaping of the conversation of leadership in this country. Otherwise, you'll keep complaining. 4th, IBC starts the activity of registering new voters. So, if you are of age and you have an ID card, please register as a voter from 4th. Chukua control, kura yako, sauti yako. Haya, Arab Chepto Mumsere masema ila Arab Tenai from Kitale, wewe watching the show, asante sana. Mayo Arab Kibunja, good morning to you. Nicholas Kiben Diema, Arab Tuyo from Endebes Falling, asante sana watu wa Kitale, it's good to see you. Haya, tuingie direct Orogo.
Yes.
Habari yake?
Mzuri sana.
Yawa?
It's a pleasure. Always a pleasure to be here as we address matters of the nation. Yes. Yeah.
How have you been?
I've been well. The country is not short of drama. We are being treated to drama as a country. Na tunaona mengi models, rallies.
Models wa kuvaa nguo.
Models, economic models. I mean, kila mtu akona yake. So mingi bottom ups, what. So I think it's important kwamba kwa hii tackle we try to help the nation. Unajua tuna direct the interest of a nation kwa mambo that are so important bitok. So once again I say this is a home for facts. This is a home for great deliberation. This is a home where I think the state of the nation should be addressed right here. Always. So it's a pleasure to be here this morning. Yes.
Okay, habari ya ANC?
ANC I think is just in the process like any other political party to position. Wanajiposition like for a seat to run to declare that we already have a presidential candidate. And this is a matter that is already ratified kwa ANDC. So there is no other presidential candidate apart from His Excellency Musalia Mudavadi as the 5th president of the Republic of Kenya.
You are still positioning.
well, every political party in a position.
Every time you guys are positioning, you are not declaring anything.
And it's important kwamba like there is no political party that is so much aware and so much confidently wanaweza sema, we are complete and ready. So it is important kwamba tuseme we are equally in that footing where tunasema kwamba we need to reach out to Kenyans, sell the agenda and also market the agenda ya ANC. I know kwamba there had been a lot of discussions about the new Secretary General. And I think umeniuliza na nikakwambia kwamba it is important kwamba to congratulate that we as a party we have set a pace by nominating one of the youngest people in this country to be a Secretary General. Like any other political party, there will be a lot of internal squabbles na politics hapa na pale, but the idea is that we have a youthful Secretary General. All other matters, I think, will be addressed internally within the political parties. So I congratulate him, and I congratulate the decision that was made, the consultation that was made. And are
you sure there was consultation? Sisi kama vijana, we are not happy. We have seen what Academa has been doing for the party.
Yes.
I know Academa very personally. He's been on the show here.
Yes.
Sometimes he has not even slept. He comes here anakuja kilala nusu. Ati amekuwa kufanya kazi ya ANC mpaka saa 10 asubuhi. He comes here, I have sleep, I have a life. I have a life, I have dead. Why is it that Akatema was not given the SG position? Tunapanda mesa ANC. We will not accept. We will not accept.
One Bitok,
because this is what I say.
Yes,
I mean, as young people, we don't care which party you are.
Yes.
Sure.
We want to ensure that we are seeing more young people in leadership.
Yes.
And any other young person who is working for their position, who deserves a position, who deserves leadership, we will fight for that one person, regardless of which party they are in, which political faction they are in. And I want to stand here and say that we, as young people, are not happy about the decisions that were made by ANC.
Yeah.
And I don't know, but to say it was consultative is being politically correct.
Well, to much extent, and remember what I said, Kwamba, I might not have agreed by the decision that the party organs had made, to endorse Mr. Gakuru as the SG.
I've never even heard about that guy.
One, there is issue. That's why I say there is internal issues within the political party, and I would not want to be misquoted by saying one.
Don't fear to be misquoted. Just say the truth. These things of saying all be misquoted. Just say the truth.
Honorable Nathaniel Mongare, like you've mentioned, ni jamaa mwenye amepigania party. Really, I agree with you. And as a personal friend, I was equally perturbed and disturbed as to why Nathaniel Mongare was jumped and the position was given to another person. Because I've also equally seen, and I've seen him sometimes even losing sleep, like you've said. Alali hata saa zingine vizuri, he's been up and down, representing party, helping the party in the recruitment, in the website drive, just putting the party together. Nobody pays him for that, but just sacrificing to do that. So it's a great honor kwamba Nathaniel had served. And let me say by that time he served as the sitting Secretary General. Let's say the facts. That is factual. So we are equally shocked by the decision that was made.
You don't look shocked.
I am because that's why I said sometimes this is on a record, but there are different things that happens off record. Yes. And this is why I'm telling you that when I saw the Honorable Ayub Savula, the deputy party leader, first deputy party leader, saying we had consulted governors, and I faulted him. I said, Nakuru governor is not a member of ANC. Yeah. Meru governor is not a member of ANC. The internal consultations are done within the party organs. Yes. And that was not consultative enough. That was not wide enough. So the decision that was made, and I agree with you, that there is actually party organs, that there is a discussion about how was that decision arrived at. But now I think, and I've also advised my good friend Nathaniel, that one is important to acknowledge that sometimes, these are politics within internal issues. Things doesn't work the way we expect. But it doesn't take leadership away from him. Okay. And you've seen his bid to vie for North Mugirango, and I think he's going to win the seat. So I would urge that, this kind of decision, even as there is redress that is going on to reach out to consult why it was arrived at, but that should not take Nathaniel Mongare and his qualities, capabilities out of the leadership track. I think this is one thing that I'm always advising.
But
we will disband ANC if it does not live to the spirit of young people. I'm coming to you, Warungu. Okay. Frederick Juma, good morning, Bitok, and happy to join the tackle this morning. Good to see you, Frederick. Ilari Tena, good morning, GB. Niko Kitale watching Ilari Tena. Thank you so much to the guys on YouTube as well. It's a pleasure to have you this morning. Warungu.
Yes.
Sema.
I think my colleague has been long on theory and short on practice. Truth be told, there are 4 facets in President Kenyatta in terms of his succession. And one facet of a political divide is the one that believes that we need to have a compromised candidate in the name of Musalia Mudavadi. And this is the facet that has taken captive or captured the ANC. So when he mentioned the likes of Akila, Nakuru governor, Kilaito governor, so ANC has been controlled or been operated, not from an internal party structure.
It's being remote controlled.
Yeah, remote control from an external or a certain rooftop of a certain building. So the issue is, but you always try to theorize the issue. But you see, at the end of the day, this politics, and we need to be a bit practical about it. the likes of the Simon Gakulu, I think it was not an internal decision by the party. It's a far much, it's what we say in politics, more than meet the eye. Yeah.
I said it was a consultation of Lee Kinyanjui and Kiraito.
I have quoted and I said Bitok that in the process inauguration of the SG, the Honorable Ayub Savula mentioned, I think it's on record, he mentioned that there is a consultation that was done. And we faulted what kind of consultation was that, because it was not internal. Warungu, let me tell you something, that all these political parties, even as we speak, we've just, and Bitok, I think, is also on record that Start Today has also carried out, an article saying that, from today it seems that even the operations of ODM, is being overtaken by Jubilee stalwarts. So it's not that it's unique to ANC, and we are not justifying. We're just saying in the process of political realignment, kuna vitu zingine zinafanyika that is beyond above us, but we are agreeing, tunakubaliana kwamba there's decisions that has to be made within the internal party structures, you understand? But sometimes as individuals we fault the party from ideally not following these structures. That is what we are agreeing here. And I'm not justifying for any decision. I'm saying that as we proceed, any party that exhibits in democracy must live to the standards of the democracy, both in theory and on practice. That is what we are saying.
I think what he's agreeing in short, Bitok,
is that the party is being remote controlled.
What he's agreeing in short, and he's not mentioning it, is in Kenya we don't have parties as institution. We have parties owned by individual. Currently, or in past, Mudavadi used to own ANC. But what my colleague is not mentioning, Mudavadi no longer own ANC. The owners of ANC are sitting somewhere in a building, and now they are doing remote control.
Who are the owners of ANC? You are making very serious allegations.
Of course, the owners
and you declare the owner.
The owner of ANC, name withheld.
No, don't withhold names. I mean, don't withhold names.
It's a certain political facet that believe that in 2022 we need to have a compromise candidate in the name of Mudavadi.
So who are these? Because you mentioned a very critical. Who are
these people?
Yes.
We also want to know.
The owner, you can mention the likes of the Nyandarua governor. Who has been so frequent in terms of pushing a compromise candidate by the name of Mudavadi.
Those are the owners of ANC.
And he is the name, the same guy in 2012, Bila State House Hanger, who was still pushing the candidate of Mudavadi still. Yeah.
So Bitok, Wakili, I think we cannot get away in the tackle here. We try to be factual.
We must tackle
we must tackle it as it comes. It is on record also that Kimemia had talked about deep state, okay? And he's admitting that sometimes deep state has a hand in picking or in deciding the outcome of elections. I want us to be very factual, and sometimes it's important for us also to demystify, also to to deconstruct some of these myths, because Bitok had mentioned in the show as we begin, and urging that one of the things that discourages voters is that they already know that the outcome of elections is decided. However much they line up, however much they wake up to go and vote, Bitok, if a youth know that they would line up and vote, but at the end of the day, it is not who votes that matters, but who counts the vote that matters. Some of these things, we must condemn them in this, we must say them as it is. Listen, each and every party, including ANC, has got the national organs, decision-making organs. And I say that some of these decisions are ratified at the National Delegates Conference. That sometimes is challenging because the ideal and the practical sometimes doesn't meet. But one thing that we are saying, either way, that all these political parties has got a responsibility to make sure that the party organs make decisions that are liked by the people and the voters of these parties. So we cannot say that, different political parties are influenced by different quarters. That in itself is a very dangerous statement, and that in itself, discourages the people's participation in the political agenda of this country.
Well, it's dangerous. Is it factual?
Well,
it's dangerous.
You
Is
see,
it factual?
I'll tell you, bit talk straight to your eyes. By some parties living in the ignorance that there is no deep state, it has made them to be perennial losers.
So there's
including
deep state.
ANC in 2013. So as much
But in
as
2013, Musalia was in deep state.
as much as we may not discuss deep state as a topic or a big topic, truth is that deep state still exists, and they still have a very big hand in terms of who becomes the president. Even in America, they will tell you that power is in two, economic power and political power. People have their say in their political power. But the people who are in the economic still manipulate the political power to ensure that those people who get in the office, they can still assist them in economic power, in what they call powerful, influential personnel, including the JP Morgan bank in America. So living in the shadow that there is no deep state, it will make some certain quarters in this country to be perennial losers for a very long time.
Okay, so there's deep state.
Of course, there's deep state.
Do you believe there's a deep state or somewhere?
Well, Bidok, this is my analysis about it. Whether it's called deep state, whether it's called deep stick, whether it's called any other name that is within within public domain, or whatever deep, how deep it is, let's agree that Bidok, our history, our political history, has pointed a direction where some few influential people within this country interfere with people's will and make decisions against the will of the people. That is factual. That it's there. I think we admit that it's been there. Secondly, we also have the responsibility of saying that should not be the way to go. We have seen even the deputy president, be very much angered about this thing called deep state, and very much angered with it because he understands the importance of meddling in people's will, the most sacred decisions to cast a vote, that you have a conversation at the ballot booth and struggling to make a decision that will guide you 5 years. But when you retreat at home, somebody goes somewhere and makes that decision for you. Generally absolving you from the decision that you make, thinking that they are superior more than the conversation that you have in the booth that is sacred and futuristic. So I think this is one thing that however much I've said it is factual, it's been there. Because there's an admission that has been happening.
Yeah, sure.
And there is an evidence that, that was, from our history. But here is the catch. And that's why I said, at the tackle, we also have the responsibilities to demystify, to deconstruct that as much as that has been happening, but that is not the way to go. Because there is a danger in it that people will rise up against this, and is appointed to us that we can have an electoral violence where people are dissatisfied that their decisions are being overturned by some 5 people seated somewhere in the boardroom and making the decision on behalf of them. So I think we in this platform have the responsibility to say this is not the way to go. This is not the way to meddle in people's affairs, in people's parties. And all political candidates, all presidential candidates has decried that even as much as they campaign, they are perturbed by the existence of deep state, by the existence of people who want to overturn the will of the people. The hustlers, have said that, we are many than these 7 people. And it's on record. We cannot vote as millions of people, and 5 people are telling us that, your votes are invalidated. So I think we have the responsibility to demystify that.
Right. Yeah. And actually, you would see a custodian of the law, like my good friend Wakili, Warungu, endorsing the deep state.
No. It was not a form of...
Moving on quickly.
It was not a form of endorsement. First, before you deconstruct something, you must admit there is such a construction. So I think what I was opposing is my colleague Daniel insinuated there is no existence of a deep state, which I think he has collected himself and admitted. They are such a powerful, may it be ethnic elites or what I would call economic elites. And in Kenya, and not only in Kenya, even in Africa and all over the world, we have those people we call the owners of things. And those owners of things, whether you brand them as a deep state in Kenya, whether you brand them in Tanzania or Uganda as the power of incumbency, whether you brand them in UK or USA as the powerful, influential people, the fact remains that those people still have a say. The general will of the people, it's only reflected in MPs, senators, women rep, and governor seat. But for the president seat, which is the most sensitive seat, then I wouldn't wish to buy this narrative by Nikita Khrushchev that the people who count the vote matter than the people who vote. But his narrative is actually very life and it do exist.
Okay. So with your comments, so should we admit then that all the elections that have been won are not credible? Like the government now that we have, Jubilee is not, their win is not credible? Was it an influence of the deep state?
Of course, there was a hand of the deep state.
Okay, so it's
but
not credible.
If you go by the admission of Kimemia, and of course you can't take Kimemia that lightly. He's been in government for the last almost 15 years.
So are you admitting that the government that we have right now is not there credibly?
Of course.
Okay.
So that's my own admission.
But isn't it interesting that Wakile is defending the same government that he believes is in power illegally?
No, you see two things be talk, and I would discuss this issue of a deep state. I would wish us to go with the narrative of Kimemia.
Forget about Kimemia. You have admitted that the Jubilee government, as it is now, is not credibly in power. And you apparently also support the same government. Are you part of the whole scheme, or are you also a member of Deep State?
Not necessarily. You see, the Deep State encompasses very powerful, influential personnel.
Who said you're not powerful? Because if you're supporting a government that is illegitimate.
Either from a business perspective, either military people, all government civil servants who have the paranoia of the incoming government. So Deep State also have a different segment, depending on how you view it. They are powerful civil servants who are really afraid of the change.
Okay. Yeah, so as we close that conversation with the Deep State, Wakili, doesn't it bother you that you are supporting an illegitimate government?
Of course, it bothers me from a legal perspective, but from a political perspective, I mean, politics is unfair and it's a game of charlatans. So it shouldn't bother me.
So you are a charlatan. Okay, OROGO.
He's making serious admissions.
Very serious. We should have this on record.
No, it's not serious admission. All I'm saying is, from a legal perspective, and if I was to put democracy on the table, of course it bothers me. But from a political perspective and how politics is played, not only in Kenya or in Africa or all over the world, then I think it doesn't bother me because politics is a game, it's an unfair game.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, like I said,
I hope we can have this on record. These are shocking revelations.
Like I said,
these are very shocking revelations from the Deep State.
Very seriously. Coming from a sharp legal mind, like that we have in Wakili. But allow me to say this talk. You ask critical questions. Yeah. Does it mean that elections that we've had, has been illegitimate or has been interfered with? Yes. The answer is yes. And why yes? And I will qualify my statement, Bitok. One is you realize that ever since the ushering of multi-party, not even multi-party, even before, all elections and, the history of elections, looking at even Mlolongo, remember the lining up. Yeah. There were admissions that when you are running against the Moi government by that time, the one that has got the longest queue, would be declared the loser. But the one with the shortest one,
Mlolongo.
The Mlolongo system, is the one that, his hands, the chiefs and the administration would raise the hands and say he's the winner. And
but I think also, OROGO, I think that was the best or the easiest election toward it. Because if you have eaten my money,
yes,
and I'm coming and I'm seeing you're lining up elsewhere.
Sure.
I'll look you in there and tell you what changed.
I agree from the perspective of an aspirant and from the perspective of trying to audit yourself and seeing people who actually are behind you, that is okay. But from the perspective of an election outcome where you believe that you run an election and you're winning, but instead some chief somewhere or some DC were involved in that elections and
intimidation,
and goes and lifts somebody's hand who got a shorter queue. This was again imported even post multi-party democracy. You realize that is where we had the genesis of elections, of meddling, stuffing of ballot papers by individuals. The case in 2007, Bitok, and this is why I said the moral responsibilities of us here to try to be factual to the nation. That, of course...
and to deconstruct bad habits.
And to deconstruct bad this is the moral
bad
duty,
habits.
And this is why when you ask us to come here, we have the burden of proof. We have the burden of being factual and, trying to say as it is. 2007, we those of us who are at least at the age of political awareness, you saw that the election's outcome, what happened in that election outcome, somebody somewhere was sworn in, at the presence of State House at an hour that was not prescribed in the Constitution. Who did that? Is the deep state we are talking about right now. Is the deep state we are talking about right now. Come 2013.
But you saw the results.
Yeah,
you saw the results, the consequences of that.
I mean, everybody, and it's within the public domain that the interference was, there's a huge interference of elections out in 2007. And hence we had the post-election violence that, we are still reliving from the effects of that violence until now. 2013, a court case, that was thrown out of technicalities, Wakili. 2017, an overturning of a case in the presence and in the allegations that the servers were interfered with. And those servers, even as we speak, has not been opened. So in this, the precedents Bitok that we are setting in this country, and I'm even wary that somebody at that age is speaking about still deep state interfering with elections, trying to overturn the will of the people. If in sense, Kenyans have suffered towards people, an outcome of an election that people participated, seriously to go and make their voices be heard. So this is my worry. And I think you can see my fear when you talk about deep state versus the democratic will of the people. And that will usher in the conflicts post-election that we might even witness. And aspirants have spoken about it. DP has spoken about it. Musali has spoken about it. Everybody's speaking about deep state and the fear, post-election.
But Bitok, as much as my colleague said that we need to be factual, it is pure analysis. We also need to be very pragmatic. In politics, if you want to go far and thrive in politics, you need to be a bit pragmatic.
And you also need to lie more.
You don't need to you don't need to call a small spoon a big spoon. We really need to point the loopholes that are there. Before now, he mentioned about the democracy, which deep state also are an example of the weakness that we also have in democracy.
Okay. All right. Moving on quickly. The courts have reversed the decision to add levies and taxes on fuel yesterday, following a successful petition by two civilians. They're not MPs, they're not senators, they're not governors, they are not nominated, they are not just Kenyans of normal work. They have gone to court and they have reversed the decision to add levies and taxes on fuel. Meanwhile, your MP, your favorite MP, whom you voted for, is whining on Twitter. He's attending political gatherings. He's crying with you. Ukilia ata analia. Now, why do we need this parliament? Do you think this time parliament is just disbanded? Hiyo nyumba ya bunge ifunguliwe iko stalls, ikatwe Wakenya wauze mitumba hapo ndani na maisha isonge. Why do we have these people?
Well, again, let first of all congratulate the Kenyans who, and I like the way you've profiled them. You said they're just Kenyans; they are not members of parliament. If my memory serves me right, they should be coming from Korogocho. The two, individuals who petitioned the court, if I'm not wrong, Wakili and Bitok. So. This is a case I think was filed by Ken Amondi, the lawyer, and we've been set with him in different platforms. I mean, and one of the things that the lawyers petitioned, and I agree, that a decision like this is petitioned based on the public interest, and based also on the process of the law, and also looking at how Kenyans were consulted and participated on that decision. It's an affirmation talk, and we like to say and rally the tacklers and people who are following us, and remind them that the sacred duty, that is a civic duty of this nation, can be done by anybody in any quarters who feels that they have a right as a right holders to hold the government of the day accountable. It can be done from people, from those coming from Kibra, Korogocho, those from Langas and everywhere, Kiambiu and all other areas, because of the civic duty that all powers are invested in the people of Kenya, the supremacy of our constitution. I think that is a show of might, and we need to, that is why I'm congratulating these two individuals that, took their time without, they have no positions in this country. Probably they have not much resources, but they understand the importance of civic duty. They understand the importance of holding the government to account. And secondly, it also affirms to us that indeed, and you've mentioned, our members of parliament who we elected are also joining the lamentation nation. We are lamenting with them. So the whole nation is a nation of lamentation. When there's a crisis in fuel prices, there is a crisis in the state of governance, there is crisis in corruption. Bitok in your parliament yenye ulikuwa nasikia watu wanachukua rushwa kwa choo. This is the same parliament that we, 10,000 kwa choo. This is the same parliament where a former governor is admitting that they are smoking bang in toilets. This is the same government, the same parliament that we are having. It is the same parliament, where instead of legislation, watu wanamwagia speaker maji in the process. So, Bito, what I'm trying to paint is that, of course, we are having a parliament that was constituted, maybe for the purposes that was not for doing the sole duty that is outlined in the constitution. Either two things. The same parliament that we elect is not competitive enough, or we as a citizen elected people who did not meet chapter 6 of the constitution. And therefore they are powerless because they were bought at a price and they need to obey that price. And I think lastly, again, it's what we are talking about. If we are having a parliament in Yaiko independent, that somebody from the executive can call, somebody from an opposition leader can call and say, you need to pass that VAT. Because it didn't begin, this is not a case that, we are just reacting to now. In a case, and you remember the passing of VAT, you remember it, I think, but sometimes. Yes. And the chickens have come home to roost. So the people who lobbied for the passage of that taxes were politically correct by that time. But the consequences are alive to the fact. So everybody across board failed us as a nation. Everybody. Nobody is sacred in this thing. All the political heavyweights failed us because they never rallied their troops to shut down this bill when VAT...
No, they rallied to support. You can remember mobilization.
But shut down, nobody was willing to take that price of shutting it down. So when it came to that time, our parliament, wanaweza skizana to increase their salaries wakili.
Yes.
Kama increase salary, everybody is. In fact, that
same day.
That will be passed very easily. But if it's anything that deals with mwananchi down here, in Kibera or anywhere, then it becomes inakuwa kitendawili. So I think we are having a very incompetent parliament. But again, I'm pointing us right to the eye and saying, this is the consequences of the decisions that we are making at the ballot. These guys are not from us. These guys are not from Jupiter, any other planet. They are right here with us. So they are coming from a society where we come from, and we elected them to represent us. It's a representation of who we are as a republic, of who we are as a society. So when we have a decision to change, I think we should change the leadership of this country.
Okay, Wakili.
Yes, I think it's a classic example of what Article 1 of the Constitution of Article 2 state on the indirect or direct representation, of what I would call a direct sovereignty of the people, where now people, especially for these two good Kenyans, through a public litigation on public interest, they take and they go and so it's a good example And it also, you see, a member of parliament constitutionally has 3 roles. One, registration, representation, and oversight. But due to bad manners of our politics and the infiltration of populism in our politics, you find that Kenyans are not able to look there for their candidate from those 2 perspectives or 3 perspectives, constitutional perspective. Is he a person who can represent you well in parliament? Is he a person who can, in his work of legislation, oppose such a regulation? If he's someone who can take oversight, and in this case, the EPRA, Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority, into account. Remember, 2 CSAs have been invited in Senate and avoided the committee, the committee summoned. So, and you see some of these senators have not even gone far to pushing them. So I think it's a classic example of direct representation by wananchi, and I think it should be recommended and supported.
Okay. So are you happy about the decisions that about the way parliament functions as it is?
I'm not happy.
Okay.
Definitely. And I think there are no Kenyans who is happy. And there is a very silent practice with Kenyans that 85% of the parliamentarians never see the light of the day. So I think the same is awaiting the majority of them. So I think it's a matter of 9 to 10 months.
Yeah, that could be outside there kwa sababu I think watu wamechoka, and effects also of COVID has exposed us bitok. Imetufunua uchi as a country, because you realize that kwamba if you have problems, you're on your own. You know, we've seen people who have been detained in the hospital because they lack the bills have gone over millions and millions now wamefungwa hospitalini. Nobody is talking about them. Is this country where even NHIF cannot even pay for some outpatient services? Nobody is speaking about it. So I think the COVID also brought into the issues that we really see how we are from the bare knuckle of things that boss ukipatikana na hii kitu you're on your own. I mean, suffer with it. If a whole doctor by that time could be admitted and the whole doctor passes away because nobody tends to him, yet he's been serving the people for that age. So I think pia imetupatia wosia kwamba sometimes we as Kenyans need to have a conversation with ourselves of the type of leaders. But we talk in this show, I also want to go on record. Yes. Unaona huyu mwananchi mwenye anatembea hapa nje, huyu mama mboga huyu, this guy mwenye anasukuma handcart, my friend, these people are not interested in change. I can tell you for a fact. Allah? This I can tell you for a fact. Do you know why? Because I believe, Bitok, that each and every election to present an opportunity ya kuchange. But I want to tell you for a fact. Look at recently, Mwananchi have been told, you don't need to go for those rallies because COVID-19 and the other variant is hitting more. Tafadhali avoid, because the moment kitu imekushika, you'll find that you're on your own as a people. Look at the rallies. The rallies are full. The rally is full. And I keep asking Kenyans, what really happens? Because at the end of the day, it's about you and you. Yeah. Is it because siasa iko na uchawi ingine nyatuelewi, or because of what happens? Secondly, I want to tell you that given the choices, Mwananchi will settle for a lesser devil, not for a person who will help. And I've tell you, in this political scene, I highly doubt the capacity of a Kenyan voter or any other voter in any other vote. The psychology of a voter is very complicated, Bitok, because this is one person that will tell you that they are tired of bad leaders for 5 years. They will lament of proper, improper drainage, of improper sanitation, of underemployment, unemployment. They will lament. But Bitok, ikifika wakati wa siasa, I don't know what happens to the voters. They disregard everything that they have been facing, and again vote in the leaders that they will lament few months to the election. And the lamentation complaining goes on a cycle. So sometimes I also believe that we are too hard on our political leaders. Of course, we should audit them and hold them accountable. But I think sometimes, Bitok and Wakili, we must continue and we must start speaking about what is the psyche, what is the mindset of a Kenyan voter when presented with choices to make.
Okay. I think Bitok, a Kenyan voter is very irrational and very emotional because of the various problems that he's going through. So you find most of them during the campaign period, they're excited by sloganeers and lazmatas. You hear them saying that I'm a hustler or I'm a rural economic guy without necessarily gauging the credibility or the integrity of that either the chief chicken hustler or Baba. So you find a Kenyan voter due to the many problems that he's going through. And of course, now that we have a new practice of the populist politics, most of them go with the wave of populism. And you know it's very hard to change those all populism to agenda. If you recall well, when the Jubilee government was coming in term in the year 2012 and 2013, they promised what I would call a laptop. And it really moved the masses as a populist idea. But now when it came to turning that populism into agenda, the whole issue now changed, and they started giving, if it's one class, 2 laptops. And they had promised every kid that will have a laptop. So you find because of many problems that the Kenyan voter is going through, either going without having any meal, lack of employment, you find them, they don't have a high capacity in terms of making or having to choose a good leader. So you go with the one, either the euphoria, the populism, the sloganeers, or the razmatas. Of our politicians. Okay,
all right. Moving on quickly. Raila Odinga was in Mount Kenya yesterday, and he seems, the optics seems to be giving him the credit of taking over the mountain. What's your feeling, Orogo? Well, do you think finally the mountain has accepted Baba? Baba amekuwa hiker, amepanda mlima.
Well, I mean, Baba has gone to fish in the mountain, And maybe, I don't know if fish exist on the mountain. It's an analogy that we can really find if it's really practical. Well, to be a devil's advocate, I think that Baba and ODM fraternity, like all other political parties, are reaching out to Mount Kenya. Mudavadi also has been in Mount Kenya for some time, so, and like Baba, he's also tried to convince the mountain to choose somebody who is less angered than the two individuals. But now that you asked about Baba, I think I would restrict that myself into ODM and Central Kenya. Now there is a sense in which we cannot put like the whole Central Kenya into a small microscopism on political issues, right? Central, and then there is the other side of Eastern, and you see there is a divide on the decision. Muranga people, and I think today they are having the Mount Kenya Foundation is having a breakfast meeting with Baba, and as reported, those who are meeting him today are what the people that we are trying to avoid to call deep state in this show, and it's being reported that these are people that are financed and have influenced the outcome of elections in from Kibaki's and from Uhuru's and until now. So they are meeting him, and the decision is the Baba is going to tell them the agenda. I think that is well, because one, it's important, not only for Mount Kenya Bitok, but everybody in this country, for any presidential candidate, kama unasimama kura, and uambie watu, what are you providing? I think it's important that every discussion is that all the political candidates tell the agenda, tell the interest of that area. on the people that you are going to meet. And I think secondly, it's let us also advise that for the mountain, it's important to listen to all the presidential candidates. Okay, you welcome the DP, though you haven't had the Mount Kenya Foundation. I doubt if they've had a conversation with DP, but they should also have a confirmation and with him and confer matters of this country, because he's another presidential candidate. Equally to Musalia, equally to Muturi, equally to Ruben Kigame, that we don't mention as a presidential candidate. And you did a good thing by inviting Kigame here. It's very critical that everybody has, and I need to thank you for that. Everybody has an opportunity to speak to people in any platform and to sell the agenda just like that. However, I think that is so mixed, and there is a difference between ground politics and boardroom politics. I have seen in pictures that Baba was welcomed on both ground and on boardroom. There were some elements of heckling. I don't know how truthful it is, but videos that are making rounds on social media shows that in one of the stopovers, he was, everybody was trying to say it's hustler here. But if that is to go by Bitok, just like I said, we also have a duty to tell Kenyans that our politics must also be, objective sometimes. That each and every person be given an opportunity. William Ruto was welcomed in Kisumu at the national, holiday. He addressed the public, okay, without interference, and everybody listened to him. In Migori, he was welcomed on the, Awendo, Migori, and welcomed on last weekend. And so we should equally see Raila being welcomed in the Rift. Uhuru being welcomed, Musalia being welcomed everywhere. So I think it's important for each and every candidate to be listened to. However, even if you've made a decision to vote for another person, maturity of politics requires that you listen so that you make an informed choices. But it will be still an uphill task, because Odinga has to demystify some of the narratives that were created in the Mount. That one, he is a person who would seek revenge when he's into the leadership at a revenge. The ills was that were done to him, the breakage of MOU post 2002, and that the Luo people of what has happened historically, they would revenge. I think these are some of the things that he's been trying to tell the people, retelling the stories to people, retelling the stories to the Mount. But if the Mount do not have a person to settle for, we are offering Musalia Mudavadi to settle for as a candidate. We are asking people that is a choice that can guarantee your interests, that the people of Central Kenya, the people of Eastern Kenya as well be talk.
Okay. I think just to collect whatever you said about Musalia, I don't think Mount Kenya needs what I call kids gloves or someone who is soft. Just to come back to the Laila issue. In politics, we normally have three things. One, strategy. Second, numbers, and the other one, resources. If you look at Mount Kenya is very advantaged because it contains all those three things. When you are running against a Mount Kenya candidate, he starts with what we call 40 or 30% advantage because of their numerical figures. In terms of strategy, these are a community that has been to power for 35 years. Kenyatta 1, 15 years, Moi Kibaki 10 years, and then President Kenyatta or Kenyatta 2, 10 years. So those are 35 years. So it's a community that come up or will of course it doesn't lack what we call strategies. Resources, most of the tycoon, and majorly from my home county Murang'a, which encompasses the Mount Kenya Foundation. Hii ile time nilikuwa nasikia pale Safari Park wakati wa TNA, sahani moja ya chakula ilikuwa ina cost 10 million. And they were able to raise for TLA 1 billion within one dinner.
In less than 2 hours.
Less than 2 hours. So these are people who come with resources. And in the last 3 decades, they have been having what I would call a credible candidate or a substantive candidate. Na wamekuwa kivote ile tunasema homogeneous voting. But saizi inaonekana they don't have a credible candidate. So everyone is going on looking to the mountain. For Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, and I mentioned in another broadcast that him climbing the mountain will be a bit rocky for him because of because of his, of course, past negative publicity and narrative. But just like Paul the Apostle, he need to continue preaching the message, and probably someone in Jerusalem or Jericho will adhere to his message. Yeah.
He needs to keep saying the way it's been said. Declaring salvation.
You see, Paul Apostolo hakukufa moyo. Lazima unaendelea kujibu injili. Hata wali pale Ruto alienda Migori, lazima useme hustler. Unasema hustler, wanasema baba, unasema hustler. You still go back. And you know, politics is all about persistent. Politics is not like love. Wakati mtu amekukata unamwambia nenda za samaki ni wengi baharini. But siasa lazima ukienda pale
unaendelea kuomba tu.
Ukienda pale coast, wakati unasema baba unaambua hustler, unagoja the next day unasema baba, wanakosa kusema hustler. Ama ukienda pale hustler Nyanza, ukisema hustler wanasema baba, unasema tena hustler. Unasema una confuse tu, unasema hustler pia ni baba, unasema baba ni hustler. You keep on preaching the message. Hata Paul kupenya ikuwa rahisi, lazima angerudi Jericho. Unakaka unaenda Jerusalem, unarudi another trip. Definitely at the end of the day, you not lack 3 or 4 people who will adhere to your message.
But Wakili, do you feel Raila Odinga is making inroads into central Kenya? Because I've seen several posts done by MPs in central Kenya. I've seen Kanini Kega. I saw Gunjiri of Nyeri. I've seen a number of guys saying, you guys said we cannot tell Baba in central Kenya. See, do you think he's making inroads?
You see, I'll tell you 2 things. Ruto in 2012, because of what had happened in 2007, he was the most unsellable candidate in Mount Kenya. Because your kidonda cha may happen, look at 2007, it was still there. Secondly, you must look at the objective of Baba going into the mountain, so that you can be able to see whether he's achieving any inroad. What is his objective? Is his objective getting the whole chunk or getting a quarter of the chunk? If you answer your question in the affirmative, then he's willing. And just to go back to the sensitive issue, the whole issue of the deep state, Kimemia mentioned 2 things. For you to be supported by the deep state, you need to be electable, you also need to be credible. In the year 2012, the narration or the creation of the tyranny of numbers was to pay to who was being electable and credible. So the narrative of saying that Baba only need 30% or 35% could be a ploy or a plan by the deep state, just to show that if you have retailed the other 44%, he only need the whole of the Wakorino vote, who are 1 point, with all due respect, who are 1.2 vote. So from there, hata kama wataweza kumpusha hizi zingine 3, atakuwa amewin. Secondly, the most important thing, the most important thing, the other important thing ni kuwa, for the first time in many years, Raila Odinga will have what we will call credible candidates in Mount Kenya. Tuseme kama Ricky Nyajui aseme nasimama na baba na liko kule Nakuru. Hata kama atapata kula 70,000 ama 100,000. These are votes Raila never used to have. Akikuwa na mtu kule Mathioya kule constituency yangu anasimama MP, amtafutie kula 15, 15,000. Itakuwa amemsaidia Secondly, Raila will have a chance to have agents in Mount Kenya. Raila never used to have agents in Mount Kenya. Angepigua kula 20, Uhuru police station anapata kitu, President Uhuru anapata 70. Iya Raila 20 pia wanachukua wote wanasema amepata 9. At least now he has some people, kwa sababu akona credible MP down there. He'll have people who can be able to guard his vote. So that his opponent vote cannot be inflated, na zake zikuwe deflated. So these are now the behind strategy of Raila now going to Mount Kenya.
I saw for the first time I've even seen there is an audio movies in Odhaya. The Lord is good. Some comments to make.
You see, I've always believed that Raila has always had a following in Central. He's had a following in Central, but insignificantly. Wakili, you remember areas like Meru? Raila had got inroads in Meru. Tigania and all those. So in all these things, I think it's one of the things that you're probably asking is he making inroads to other areas that had been perceived that selling him is like selling a pork in the mosque, okay? Or Mecca. So I think right now there is significant steps that are being made on the ODM side to persistently. It's not been easy, by the way, and I like what Wakili said, go back and talk to people. And for all presidential candidates, go back and talk to people, sell your narrative. But something that I'm really wary about is the actual ground perception. The actual, leave alone the things that we buy and things that we see. What is the actual ground perception? Because it will take him time. Aende na kuongea na yule, the mama mbogas of these regions directly. Remember in one of the clips I saw is that there is a woman who said, it's the first time I am seeing you. I've been seeing you on TVs and I've been seeing, it's good that I see you and hear you. Speak about yourself, because much of the things I've heard about Raila is about rumors and things that are unfounded for. Lakini sasa akianza kuenda na kuingia Mount Kenya like any other presidential candidate, I like the democracy on that region because they're listening to each and every presidential candidate there. But we need to be aware of something. The rising of many political parties in that region. What could that tell us? Because Martha Karua has been endorsed by to be a de facto spokesperson. And if you see Moses Kuria and Kiunjuri agreeing that the Iron Lady, the return of Iron Lady speaks on their behalf, I think there is something cooking. Justin Muturi had equally been enthroned as the de facto spokesperson of that region.
Several spokespeople.
Moses Kuria has also been enthroned severally. It's not the first time. Severally. And others that are still coming. I think also Munya and Kiraitu. So we also need to be wary about hii kuchipuka kwa spokesperson, the de facto spokesperson and political parties in that region. Is it for the purposes ya kufragment voting block ya Mount Kenya?
We also need to declare Wakili today another spokesperson.
Yes.
We need more spokesperson.
We need to enthrone you. Yeah, because it seems everybody is becoming
spokesboy wa ANC.
So does Martha Karua then speak for you? Na pole by the Moses Kuria, sijui nani alivunja mguu Moses Kuria, pole sana ndugu yangu, ukuwa pole.
But you see, one thing you need to give.
So who is your spokesperson? Muturi, Kuria, Martha Karua? Who is it now?
No, I think Muturi was correlated, and if he is a spokesperson, probably from the east, not from the west. And I mentioned in another broadcast that I'm finding it hard to believe that Justin Muturi is doing his own bidding. If you mention one of those very confident of President Uhuru Kenyatta, you mention Justin Muturi, you mention the Solicitor General Muturi, and you mention David Molade. So it's hard to believe whether he's doing his own political bidding. But you need to look for or check Martha Karua. You should remember that Martha Karua is the only remaining person that really stood with Mount Kenya those days. Forget about the new papas politicians, the likes of Akina Nyoro and Rigathi Gachagua. We are talking of 2002 and 2007, when we used to have a credible politician in Mount Kenya, the likes of Akina Mishuki, the likes of my former MP JJ Kamodho, the likes of Akila Jenga Karome, the likes of Akila Stanley Githongori, politicians who really stood for the community as one. And among them was Martha Karua. So I think, and Martha Karua has a very credible grassroots. Ukiangalia siasa ya kule Kirinyaga wakipigana na mtu anaitwa Anne Waiguru, even Anne Waiguru political strategies watakuambia ule Martha Karua tunamuogopa, akola ile inaitwa grassroots. And she's a lady who always goes against the odds. Na unapenya bado watu wanampenda huko. So Daniel, don't be worried of us having many Mount Kenya spokesperson. Kibaki remains with a partyless 3 months prior to the election. Around February, April, March, April, we'll settle, and all these people will be subordinate to one individual. Certainly not Musalia Mudavadi, your political boss, but either Mother Karua or either of those.
You see why I was really worried, because Honorable Anne Waiguru has been on record na nasema kwamba you can only rent a Kikuyu, but
you can't buy one.
You can't buy. So I am wondering whether the
But
rise
she
of
is on her way. She is on her way back to Jerusalem.
These political parties.
So maybe you are speaking to someone.
Are there to be, to be rented, or there to be auctioned, or are there to be, that is one worry. I know those are tantrums of democracy. That it's important that kila region in a form parties for the purposes of conversation. But the rise of the parties, I think the intention is. The worry is that now Mount Kenya say that msijali ikikuja kwa 2022 you will see us speak in one. So we are wondering the kind of direction that that would take in terms of listening to the interest of the people there and guaranteeing their interest there. Now Bito, kuna kitu ilifanyika that I think the Mount is also healing from. You see, BBI had guaranteed that when the passage of BBI would guarantee extra constituencies of that region. And unfortunately, that received some legal landmines, and the whole reggae has been brought to stop. I mean, I don't know whether it's on a stop or in a break. But Sasa, the region has to really find a comeback in terms of how then would they communicate or have a conversation with political leaders without not the extra additional constituency to guarantee one man, one shilling, one vote. And I think that is the discussion that the region is actually trying to have right now with all these caucuses, all these political leaders and all these aspirants. I think secondly is the importance, Wakil, is the importance of guaranteeing the economical interest of that region. Even as much as you want to dismiss other presidential candidates, in this show, but I'm telling you that there is only one candidate that has offered that guarantee and has been on record saying that it is important to think about the issues of Mount Kenya. It's important to have a discussion with this region and other regions. And Mudavadi has talked to you severally in that region and telling you, for now, forget about other people who are approaching. It's important to have a conversation as to where the region will accept or not. That is left for those people to decide. But what I was equally saying in this said that it's wary one that the philosophy of Hasla is hostile to regional parties. Okay, and that is on record. And this and the lead of the Hasla narrative has said we need to have a one political party that should be nationalized, that speak about the issues of this country, that there is no factions of these political parties different coming from that region and that region. But also Mount Kenya, like the rest of the region, have also suffered in 2013 when they folded all of 12 political parties to have one Jubilee party. I think the effects of that is with them, and they would not want any political parties that is unilateral. That is why Martha Karua is on record saying that we want political party pluralism, so that this one would not return us to one party state. And next we want to have a conversation again, apart from economic model that we were waiting. We want to come back and discuss about political philosophies and ideas of politics, because it would be important for us, for the UDA stalwarts, to tell us why, if it comes to Mount Kenya and other areas, they're saying no approaching us with a party, but they are willing to approach Nyanza people with a party. You understand? So I think it's important. What is the political dynamics about the instance of ideologies when it comes to political parties?
And also, when I would want also to get worried while we all talk about us, we want this, we want this, us. Who sits to talk about the country?
No, I'll explain something to you, Mr. Bitok. Yes. The difference between a state and a nation from a public international perspective. A state is a community that shares, a nation is a community that shares the same language, the same culture. So we have the Kisii as a nation, we have Luo as a nation, and Kikuyu as a nation. So we don't have a country called the Kenya nation. Kenya is a state. A state is the one that has different communities and different characters. So what happened in political science is that nation come up with their different interests to form the state or to capture what we'll call a state power through their interests. So the Kisis come with their banana interest. If the Luyas, they come with their sugar interest. If the Luo, fishing interest. If the Mount Kenya, they come with their tea and coffee interest. In their interest, now they form what I would call a political party, or they gather people in a group so they can be able to solidify power, so that they'll be able to, as even they take care of their own interest, they also take care of the other interest. But what happened with Kenyan politics, because of the narrative that Mount Kenya have ruled for a very long time, whenever Mount Kenya comes together to discuss their own interest and also discuss the interest of Kenya as a state, there is always some people raising fingers or saying that that particular nation is starting to be tribal. If I can remind you, the Kisis met the other day, and their statement was led by Silvanas Osolo. And there was no that raising of eyeballs that the Kisis are being tribal. So I think it's true. And Mount Kenya also come with their advantage. Either call them Mount Kenya, call them Gema, as it was formed in 1971 by Jackson Agaile, representing the Merus, Jeremiah Nyaga representing the Embus, and Jenga Karume representing the Kikuyus. And you see the dinosaur of it, the Gema is still very intact. So you can't fault Mount Kenya for pushing their own interest. On the other hand, because of Luyas who have always been divided on clan, on petty clan business politics. So I think it's true.
Yeah, no, I mean, Wakili, nobody is Bitok and I was just getting worried about the rise of these parties, the regional parties, and the installation of a number of people who, everybody is purporting that do not represent the collective interest of that region. So I agree that every region has got a sole duty of presenting their interest to any political candidate. Like you said, all these nations, I mean, they have their issues that they want.
Different, unique interest.
Exactly. Yeah. But we are wary about now what is the diversion of interest that we are seeing in the region, and not only on Mount Kenya but other regions. And so the task that the region has, that we are asked actually to explain in the show, is are they formidable in terms of approaching the political candidates with a collective agenda, or each and everybody is pulling an agenda, endorsing themselves. Kila mtu anachukua sehemu yake andararua na anaenda nayo and presenting themselves as potential spokesperson. Would that is bringing confusion, or just trying to put the whole community to disarray when it comes to political conversation?
You see what's happened in Mount Kenya, Bitoka and Daniel, is that there is a difference between the ethnic political elites and the subject, who are the population. So there is a whole strategy of now dividing the vote to unfavor a certain candidate. And the next strategy, political strategy, will also causing what I would call voter apathy, still to support another candidate. So it's true. And after all this one is settled, I think at one time, Mount Kenya will speak in one voice. If it's not pre-22, certainly it will be post-2022. So it will not be like the Luya disunity or the division that has been in existence for decades. So at the end of the day, when now the strategy of dividing Mount Kenya will have worked, certainly now Mount Kenya will come together. If you remember, even during the Moi time, Mount Kenya was highly divided, and that was Moi strategy. Divide in 92, divide Kibaki and Matiba, using their political ego. Send a delegation to America, where now Matiba was getting treatment, and tell him that there is no way Kibaki would be running, and you are not running, as a way of dividing Mount Kenya after the multipartyism. What happened in the year 2007? Mount Kenya still came together, 2007, 2013, and 2017. So after the strategy will have worked of dividing Mount Kenya to favor a certain candidate against another candidate, now Mount Kenya will certainly come together. May it be post-2022. Post-22 is not very far.
Okay.
Okay. There's a question here that someone is asking. Yes, it says, what are the interests of the cosmopolitan cities and towns like Nakuru, Nairobi, Eldoret, Kitale, etc.?
In interest in regards to
as you are segmenting and doing regional balkanization,
yes,
for interest, places that are cosmopolitan,
yeah,
because now the conversation that we're having today is about ethnic regions and ethnic balkanization, interest of people who come from a certain area pushing for themselves. We have regions that are as everybody, and the viewer is just given an example: Nakuru, Nairobi, Eldoret, Kitale, etc. What happens? How do we push for the interest? Well, where do they cack us?
You know, it's so unfortunate. I think it's one of the political misfortunes that we have, you know, as in this country, that the moment we push for you know, a segmented and a fractional kind of politics, we by default exclude others from, you know, participating talk. Now, since we also important that we stay clear that our political system, there are realities and there are ideals. You know, the political reality in this country is that, first of all, as a presidential candidate, you gather and you make sure that your ethnic bloc is balkanized. I think that is how the misfortune that we've had in this country, Wakili.
Yes.
That for you to be considered as a potential one is that you must receive the home ground support. And always the home ground support is assumed to be your ethnicity, first of all. I mean it's real. I mean that is real. Look at these all politicians that we are having. I mean, for Raila you have to balkanize Luos first. For Ruto you have to balkanize Kalenjin behind you. Intact, not just lose confidence, intact voting bloc. For Kikuyus you have to, you know, any presidential candidate has to have a say from that region. So
has to be a spokesperson.
Has to be a spokesperson. You know, that is so unfortunate because one, you have seen that this kind of cosmopolitan regions, the moment there is a discussion about settling for a formidable presidential candidate who is not from the ethnic tribe, that by default exclude them from either mainstream political participation. So they will either bargain in these political parties as a minority groups. And this is why you see that after the elections, all these regions that are not within the leadership of these political parties, they will either be begging for positions to be appointed to some, some political positions or some parastatal, which shouldn't be. The ideal, and I want to speak to the heart of that, of the person who asked this, that there is a struggle in this country about making political parties inclusive by making the agenda of Kenya, especially the Vision 2030 of this country, the political agenda of Vision 2030, to be issue-based, you know, to be objective enough, you know, to be considerate, to be inclusive of that diversity. So, well, that is not real. Well, that is a bit ideal because it's remained on paper. It's not practical. I think it's important that we still continue to compel political parties to be inclusive enough, you know, because I agree with our, you know, the follower and the listener who is in tuned. I think at the backdrop of this is the fear of historical marginalization. At the backdrop of the listener is about the rise of some political conflicts, because the moment you are always, you know, excluded, you are not participating on nominations, you are not participating in elections. The only option you are left with is to show your frustration, you know, out of conflict, because you cannot be heard anymore. So I think I would ask the person that, you know, we are not getting tired of trying to push for internal political democratic space to be open enough for minorities, to be open enough for those regions that are cosmopolitan, because all these regions has got minority, not only in terms of ethnicity, but also in terms of age, you know, in terms of gender. So there are other factors of, you know, inclusivity that also needs to be looked at in this metropolitan region, because this is where the backdrop of political conflicts has been. Nakuru, Nairobi, that is where all those politics, you can trace them. That is where they always begin. Not from rural areas, but all these regions where, these metropolitan regions.
Talking about minorities, the replacement of Senator Prangei with a man from the majority.
Yeah.
Wakili.
Wakili, because you're Jubilee.
I think before I answer this one, let me first tackle what one of our listeners mentioned.
Yes.
And concerning the urban cosmopolitan, I think they can only fight for their own urban issue. But in politics, there is no cosmopolitan. That is, you don't identify yourself as being voted. And I'll give a classic example. Even in Nairobi, there are ODM zones where the community where Laila come from, people reside. Even in if you go to Western, there are a lot of lawyers there, so they always pick their own. If you go to Eloisaibo, where there are a lot of Kikuyus, they always pick their own. So it's become very hard to for them to look for those cosmopolitan interests. They can only fight for interest as urban residents. Even in Nakuru, you'll hear the majority it's between the Kikuyu and the Rift Valley guy. So if it's either you are a Jubilee guy, if you are not a Jubilee guy, then for you to win, then you really need to do a lot of hard work or improvise other strategies. Concerning the issue you have asked about the nomination of Isaac Kogi, I think it's a sad story, and it's what we have always said, that a nomination in Kenya, and I don't want to include the geopolitics of the world in this one, has always been about the loyalty versus what I would call the meritocracy. So meaning that you are not necessarily picked by the party,
smartest in the room,
because of the merit you have, not about the academic or your scholarly work. It's purely on how you have been very supportive to the party, which is really a sad story. I think I also saw a Nakuru governor complaining about it. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's politics. We said it's an unfair game.
Politics.
It's a
not
game.
even politics, that's politics.
Yeah, it's a game of what you really told me to avoid saying, a game of charlatans. There are many unspoken rules, but I think it's a very sad story.
Okay.
Well, Bitok, we need to, and I agree with what Wakili talked about. Our patriotic duty is always to compel the institutions to live up to the expectations. We have an elaborate Political Parties Act. We have the guidelines that are provided by IEBC when they submit the nomination list. And from the choice that they made, I think it was important that the party, the governing party, would live to the standards of the nomination rules. I think the late was from the Ogiek community, if I'm not wrong. And it didn't require the party much to just consult and get the most outstanding or the most qualified person from that position, rather than being replaced by somebody else who is from within the majority, assumed to be the majority in the party. I am also persuaded enough to think that the choice of replacement, the political parties and the formations of political parties, like I've said, have a lot of the ownership mentality, and that is where somebody is saying the fidelity to the party, that you have always to sing the song of the party leader every time. However much the party leader might be unpopular, but it doesn't allow room for independent thinkers, Bitok. It's unfortunate. It's one of the things that the realities that are unfortunate about this country. So it bequeaths the young people like us, and I think, Bitok, you're within our age, also to advance for the party to respect the standards of the legal requirements. Wakili,
Yes.
no, I'm saying this what I'm looking for you. I'm looking at you because it's a legal issue.
Yeah.
It's something that requires the parties to adhere to the legal requirements of the party, because one, it's the aftermath of it is that we've set a precedence in this country that you see the nomination rules can be violated and just settle for any other party while you are quoting for the party fidelity and you are quoting how loyal somebody is within the party. And exactly what Bitok asked us, that now what happens to the Ogiek communities in Jubilee Party?
So where is the
at the end of the day, who is representing their voices? Even if Jubilee Party would want to present a presidential candidate, do you think the Ogiek people would be very welcoming again to the Jubilee Party with what they have done? So I think even as much as it might not really count on some people, but the precedents and the aftermath effects it has will somehow be costly to the political parties and and the general governance of this party. And exactly what you were asking us when we were beginning this set, are the youth making their voices enough to be heard in the political parties, in a sense that when there is a call to replace to have a position for an SG, the party chairman, the secretariat of the party, can the party leader be confident enough to say that below and hold, I spot a young person there who's been working so hard for this party and who is qualified and can live up to the task of these positions? Because this is what we should be canvassing as we speak, that when opportunities present, opportunities meet qualification, then we are having young people that can be influential and can make decisions that would influence the outcome of the political party functions with regards to inclusivity, with regards to party functions, and with regards to respect of diversities within these political parties. I think that is my submission.
All right. You have anything to add? Okay.
Yeah.
You have anything to add?
I think I would agree with him on that issue that we didn't need to take party laws and laws governing political parties and politics in Kenya very seriously. Unfortunate enough that we have very good laws, but the implementation part of it is always very poor. Like, I'll give you a case scenario. In the year in 2017, I think 17 counties assemblies never even nominated any person representing the county assembly, a person living with disability. Then you wonder, in that county assembly, who will do the oversight, the registration and the representation and oversight in the government, the county government of those areas, on behalf of issues of person with disability. Then another issue is, you see what an MP or a legislature should do. Whenever there is a bill drafted on let's say, it's a health issue, then you make sure if you be nominated to represent the youth, you make sure there is a certain clause catering for the interest of the youth. If you be nominated to represent women, then you make sure there is a certain clause. If it's person with disability, you make sure if it's a health community bill, if they are talking about employment, you push a clause that will compel the county government pursuant to Article 54 of the Constitution, or 5% on all employment or appointive seats to go to person with disability. You make sure that one is also consonant to what the county assembly is also trying to draft. But now when you deprive them of that representation, then you wonder where do you want them to go? Do you want them now to take their direct representation pursuant to Article 7 through a street demonstration, and then through street demonstration they also a tear gas? So you put them in really a very rough terrain. So I think whatever my colleague has said is true. We need to take political laws very serious, and we have them. They're in plenty. The only issue is the implementation part of it.
All right. Okay, Orogo, as we move towards the end of the year and possibly beginning of the election year, what do you foresee? I mean, things are already taking shape. What do you see? What do you predict?
Well, one is that for the first time, IEBC has projected that there is almost 5 to 6 million young voters who are not registered as voters, and whose decisions will be a game changer in 2022. And this segment or this constituency of voters are people who, when you're speaking about the torture in Nyayo House, they will tell you that Nyayo House we don't know it as torture house. We know it as where we collect our IDs and passport. This is a generation of people who have, subscribed to being socialized with the internet, and whose basis of learning are on Netflix and all these things, And it's for the first time, my colleagues, that these people are going to decide to go to the ballot and look at their numbers running into millions. But the significant choices they're going to make still is elusive. So I foresee a situation where this significant and yet not registered voters who are being projected and who are targeted to register might either make a decision that will turn around the fortunes of this country or will throw these countries into political oblivion. But what should be expected? What should I see? I'm foreseeing a situation where IBC is going to be tasked with the whole duty, not only to compel them to take ballot papers and register as voters, but also to tell them on the importance of making informed decisions, regardless of any political candidate that will be presented to them. Secondly, I am foreseeing a situation where the whole country can be balkanized and the voting will be lost based on the voter apathy. By the narrative that we've begun to hear, that you see, however much you will line up from 5, and you see, Bitok, this generation sometimes is so motivated. Na unasikia watu on 8th of August, kuna watu wanaraushwa na vifirimbi, and mavuvuzelas, please go vote, please go vote. Now you're telling me that our watu wenye wameraushwa na vuvuzela lining up from
Kumera.
You are telling these people to vote, and some of them have been there from 4:30. They will vote at 7, and then you will tell them, your decision will be determined at the boardroom. When somebody imagines that, they will say, heri nikae kwa nyumba and not participate in the voters. So I also foresee a situation where the national institutions that are charged, for example, with trying to sensitize and educate the youth, especially I am insisting on the youth and women, on the importance of making the right choice. I also tell them that you see, your decisions, bad leaders are elected by good citizens who do not turn out to vote. That the bad leader that you're wishing not to be elected can also be elected by you not voting for them, by you not participating in the election. I also foresee a situation where there might be a rise on conflict, regional conflicts that are politically based. I have seen situations in Laikipia, that points a finger towards political demobilization. However much is people are talking about banditry, but even some political leaders have been arrested. The likes of William Kamket and the rest have been arrested. In those regions. So it points a finger where in some areas, a direction where in some areas there will be systematic plan to demobilize some sections of voters for the purposes of influencing the outcome of those voters, and that will spiral out to political violence. And also politically, I see a situation where Kenya would be open, democratically open to listen to all political candidates. It's happening in our eyes that we are seeing William Ruto can go to Migori and speak and leave without, stones. We are seeing in areas
Wanjigi
where,
was greeted. So they gave him a guard of honor.
Regardless of that, I think that I like and I am congratulating my Nyanza people for democratic space that I have seen Bitok. Ruto being received even on the guy's background of a national holiday, and unexpectedly, he never expected it, by the way.
He was even shocked himself.
He was even shocked himself to be given a microphone to address. So I think I see a situation where Kenyans are getting tired to being, told about people. They would want to listen for themselves, and I think this would determine the outcome of elections in this country. Okay. So this is what I foresee in 2022.
What do you foresee, Wakile?
I think too, it's good we consider or discuss the major political activity that is happening starting next Monday. And I happen to be lucky in the year 2017 to have participated in what they call the MVR2, or Mass Voter Registration 2. And I think it's good for the IEBC, even as we discussed about the anticipated 7 or 6 million registration of youth. I'll tell you, if IEBC will not come up with a good infrastructural way of making sure that these youth get out and get registered, we still will not even achieve a quota of it. It must map the political actors or the stakeholders. One, starting with themselves. Secondly, the most important stakeholders or actors, the politician, and the third most now the masses or the population. And I remember in that time, politician, especially from the Mount Kenya region, because of the anticipation that they were anticipating a lot to support their own in 2017, they didn't mobilize a lot. And the way politics operate in the world, not only in Kenya, is that for you to capture state power, you must take care of a certain interest of, or you must take a certain interest of the masses or the subject. So you really wonder in this case, and majorly the youth, and especially now we are still the introduction of politics of tokenism, where you have to give either people the wheelbarrow or other certain things for them either to support you. So I really wonder whether in this time, what's the incentive that IEBC has really in place, if at all it will avoid using politicians, because politicians are good in terms of giving the incentive. I think IEBC has
watupeka kitu ndio tukate kura.
So what happened is then you ask yourself,
they need to untie us.
Then you ask yourself, is a youth in Mathioya, in Murang'a, or in Nyanza ataweza kujitokeza aje kwenda kujiregister whereas kula hiyo incentive, alafu we have a youth wenye hata kupanga hiyo na ili anaona pia itabother. Secondly, our youth lazima uwa group in different group. They are the upper town youth, wenye wanatoka Kirireshwa, Upper Hill, not Upper Hill, Westlands, the Muthaiga, the Karen. Now they are the urban growing. I don't want to call, I really refrain myself from calling them the ghetto. The urban growing. Watu wa mabazo, masponza, watu wa wababa. So la kuna wale watu wenye wako kule ushago. So all these people, you must look at them even as you are doing what we are saying, voter registration mobilization. Lazima uangalia huyu nini utamrushia. Ukiangalia kwa siasa kuna ile tunasema object of aggression. Ukiangalia pale Western ndio dume iweze kupigana na dume ingine, inapewa ile tunasema bangi ndio iweze kukua na hiyo vipawa yake ndio kama ni gari unapewa vipawa. Kama ni mbwa kule kwetu.
So vijana wape kindukulu.
Kama ni ukiangalia kule kwetu ndio mbwa ikue kali, ilikuwa inasemekana unaipe asate fly ikue imewekwa kwa ugali ndio ikue so lazima uangalie what is the incentive, cause
the motivation.
We have what we call bad manners in our politics. Huyu kijana before atoke pale Kawangwale aende sijui liliko Dagoretti hapo South yo PVR liko
na ashaambiwa kuna deep state,
anapiga ile
na ashaambiwa kuna deep state ni hasara.
Hata na deep state anapiga ile story lazima nioge lipige jura, ule mtu nafikiri atatoka hapo saa ngapi. Hii siasa, I'll tell you one thing, a classic example. There are two types of crowd. kwa siasa watu wajui. There is the organic crowd and the mobilized crowd. Ukiangalia wakati mimi niliwatch ile msafara wa Ruto pale Awendo, resources ziliplay part sana. Alipewa watu wa bodaboda 1.5 million. Nikisikiza watu wa mama mboga wenye walikuwa hapo 500,000, mwingine akakuja na mwavuli akaambua akasema leta 30,000 hapo akapewa. So some of these things, so how do you do as IEBC? And you know an IEBC is it's a body, siasa haitaweza kuchapa ile IEBC. Tatizo lao kuwa likuwa Daniel anaweza suppose aende akae mahali fulani pale Nairobi, agoje watu. Mwanasiasa agoji, anaenda kutafuta
haya tupewe gonya IEBC tufungue. It untie us. Now guys, very shortly and very briefly, 30 seconds, there has been allegations that there are plans to suppress further registration in some regions for poll reasons or for the end result reasons, that they thought that few people could vote in those areas. Do you think that could happen? And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I've equally heard that there is this strategy, or there's systematic way that somebody or some quarters would want to further that. Because I think in this country we've said that anything is possible to happen when it comes to determining the election's outcome. Anything happens. So again, we are talking about the deep state and the system and all these things, but this is purely the role of Independent Electors and Boundaries Commission. That the IEBC had suffered serious trust deficit, and IEBC had been thrown into court, for 2020, IEBC Electoral Commission. Let me say the ECK by that time in 2007, they had good issues. A finger was pointed because they were the ones who were being blamed for the electoral violence. 2013, the same commission reconstituted had also been blamed for the court case that is there. 2017. So I would urge IEBC not to suffer another risk of fingers being thrown into their direction for systematically excluding some segment of the voters in this country from conducting their most sacred role, and that is voting and making their voice. I think that is purely what we can say in this set, that it should be uncalled for, it should not be heard of, and if any case somebody is planning to do that, that is unconstitutional, that is illegal, that would let IEBC have some case at the corridors of justice, and it would further advance the trust deficit that the commission has had between them and the people of Kenya.
All right. Your thoughts, Wakili?
Joseph Kabila in the year 2016 postponed an election because that there was insufficient funding. Donors tried to do the funding, but he still blocked them. In 2018, 2 years we allowed the election was to be held. He declared some opposition stronghold having some subtle diseases. Farmajo Mohammed in Somali state that the election body is not purely constituted, and he's able to postpone the election. In Kenya, some certain areas, the BVR is not working on the election day.
There's no network.
And including the registration day. And in 2013 and 2010 and 2017, majorly from the Western and the Nyanza region. So by mentioning those things, I was mentioning what I would call political strategies. It also rumored in 2022 there are areas where forget about dividing voters as a political strategy, even causing voter apathy. And if there are such plans as political strategy by certain political quarters, or then you ask yourself, are the same quarters also ready to sabotage the registration of voters just to kill or to overturn what we used to call the tyranny of numbers or the ethnic majoritarianism? So these are strategies, it's true, but I would say what my colleague has said. I think these are strategies that should be condemned.
Okay.
But really, at the end of the day, this is politics.
So what have you said?
What are you saying?
So what exactly have you said?
That the end justifies the
the
means.
Nicole Machiavellian.
Yeah.
The end.
Okay. Justifies the means.
The religion believe in the means.
All right. This time around, I hope we love the right means, but justifies the right ends.
Exactly. We should.
I hope we will not excuse
so that we
wrong
elect
means.
a parliament that is accountable.
Yes. Because
Instead
we'll
of
cry
us-
again.
Yes.
If the means are not auditable,
Yes.
if the means are not credible, then probably the results as well will not be the
But I
best.
also remind you
The
that
consequences.
what we are getting is power. I think we are not getting a situation where we want to go to heaven, so where that you really check on your means. So it can also determine you getting to heaven, which is the end. Yeah, it's power. So the end will only justify the means. So it's how you get power.
Yeah, I think
at the end of the day.
I think
the means should matter.
Yeah, what we agree
Yeah.
is
Let's make it like an exam.
yes.
Let's see the formula. We will mark the formula.
Yes,
this time
of
around,
course,
we'll
of
mark
course
the formula.
We will tick it.
We'll not
against
mark the
some,
results. We'll mark the formula.
Some standards. Because the thing is that we would not want always to be crying after months to election about the type of leadership we are electing, even the means that we are electing them, and we are recycling, this kind of mistakes. However much we are welding power into it, however much we are bringing philosophies to it, but at the end of the day, the ultimate point of elections is to get the leaders that we deserve. Service. If that is not, I think then we would just sit and always propose in consensus what kind of leaders we should be having.
Okay. All right, and that's it. If the process doesn't matter, then we don't want to be part of it. If you're telling us we should not audit the process, and I think there are some habits that we need to kill in Kenyan politics that we've gotten so comfortable with, that this is how it's done, or this is how politics is. I mean, I think there are cultures that we need to kill. If at all we really want to have a progressive society, a progressive country with leadership that we can hold accountable and expect things from. Amen. Otherwise, we'll still be whining in the 2023 and making noises and crying foul. So, two things. First of all, let's be tolerant. I've seen also there are habits that are coming up. Also, although we are seeing across the border as well, there is some level of tolerance, but we are seeing there are people who are coming in to heckle others, throw stones. Please, let's be tolerant enough. Let every candidate go to every region of this country. We all belong to this country. Let every other person come. They sell their agenda. If you like their agenda, fine, vote for them. If you don't like the agenda, you don't need to vote for them, but you can listen to them.
Exactly.
Because at the end of the day, we'll have a nation. We'll have a president in 2022, 2023. It might be your guy, it might not be your guy, but we'll have a nation. We'll need to move on from a country. In 2017, we actually thought we were going to collapse this country. In 2018, we thought we didn't need it. Today, the people that we are fighting over each other, today in the same government, they're in a handshake, they're having a good life, they're calling each other brothers. Well, you guys lost your businesses, you lost your neighbors, you lost friendship. So in 2022, I want to encourage you that this nation will be there after 2022 elections. We'll have an election, we'll have a president, we will move on. It could be your guy, it might not be your guy, but we'll have a president, we'll have a government, and life will continue. Nothing will change on your table. I mean, if you're working, if what you're doing, not unless now we're going to war.
Yeah.
But if we transition peacefully, we'll have a president. You'll wake up in August. The second Monday, you'll go to work like you usually do. You'll wake up from your home. You'll not wake up from State House just because your kid's man is in the State House. So, I mean, let's be tolerant during this period. Let's not echo leaders. Let's not be violent. Listen to everybody. Give everybody an opportunity to sell their agenda. Central Kenya, Rift Valley, wapi, Coast Kenya. Kila mtu aende. Baba akuja Rift Valley asikizwe, aende nyumbani. William Ruto aende Nyanza asikizwe, Mudavadi aende mahali anataka asikizwe. Basi wakati wa kura ikifika, una wakati nzuri ya kuweza kufanya uamuzi wako. Aya, nataka kuambia hivyo, that is tolerance. Let's be tolerant politically. We'll have a nation after this. And I want to repeat again, from 4th of October, the IBC is beginning a registration exercise for voters. You can only participate in an election if you are a registered voter. So I want to challenge you, every young person, please come out and take a vote. Please come out and take a vote. Kuwa na kura mkononi. Kifika wakati wakiweza kuzungumza, unaweza zungumza tu kwenye debe, lakini kama una kura, my friend, there's no way you can be part of this conversation. Kwa hivyo kuanzia tarehe 4 mwezi wa 10 ambayo Jumatatu ambayo inakuja, IBC imeanza mchakato wa kuweza kusajili wapiga kura. Kama hujaweza kujisajili kama mpiga kura, unafikisha miaka ama una kitambulisho, tafadhali kimbia pale kwenye kituo chochote cha IBC kuanzia Jumatatu tarehe 4 ili uweze kujisajili kama mpiga kura na kuweza kusika kwenye uongozi na uendeshaji wa nchi yako. Wacha kuambia mambo ati kuna mtu anafanya uamuzi kwa niaba yako. Mambo ya deep state haipo. Kura ni kwenye debe. chukua kura, uende kupiga kura. Na kama kuna deep state, basi IBC ifungwe. Tusianze kuwa registration of voters. Lakini kama demokrasia bado ipo na nafasi ya kuweza kupiga kura bado inasikizwa na muamuzi ya mwananchi bado ina sauti, basi kila Mkenya ana nafasi ya kuweza kuchukua kura. Kwa sababu kwa hivyo Mkenya mwenzangu, una jukumu ya kizalendo ambayo ni ya kipekee ya kuweza kupiga kura. Kwa hivyo tarehe 4 mwezi wa 10 tafadhali jitokeza uweze kuchukua kura. Nasema hivi ya kwamba kura yako ndio sauti yako. Chukua control, kura yako ni sauti yako. Tuonane kesho. Bye bye.